My buddy Behr Safi is here. We're going to be talking about Capcom Fighting Collection 2. How's it going, everybody? Capcom sent us out preview code to take a look at Capcom Fighting Collection 2, and we've got some killer games to talk about. These are all fighting games, obviously, and our fighting game expert is Behr Safi, who joins me now. How are you doing, brother?
It is such a pleasure to be here, Vic. I'm doing amazing. And I'm not a fighting game expert because we got to play a little bit of this together. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with your skills, Vic. I heard you making some Fei Long noises coming up. We had so much fun playing this together, didn't we?
Well, it was amazing. I've been playing fighting games forever, but I don't profess to be an expert in these things at all. I struggle along, even though I did the Tekken 3 move of the week back in the day. Hey, it's time for the Tekken! I was doing that every weekend and having a great time doing that. But I love these Capcom Fighting Collections. They're amazing. The last one that I just dove into and just absorbed, and I still play all the time, is the Marvel vs. Capcom Arcade Fighting Collection. It's so freaking fantastic. And I also like the first Fighting Collection that they did with all the Darkstalkers games and some little Street Fighter stuff. And of course, they've collected Street Fighter. My God, Capcom has made a million fighting games, haven't they?
Yeah, but it really is a celebration of their past and everything they've done. And I love these kind of compilations because there's so much little, odes to the creators here as well with the artwork, and there's like the marquees, and there's just, it really feels like a celebration. And with Capcom Fighting Collection 2, this really, if you look at like the release date of a lot of these games, this is really like the 25th anniversary for a lot of these games. There's a lot of titles here that call out the year, year 2000, year 2001. Right. So it's very special. Like it was surreal for me to be able to play these games on a PlayStation. That they're all
Naomi
all
board games.
Oh, so you got your Power Stone.
I have some Dreamcast beauties.
Mick,
Plasma Sword. Power Stone 2, and these four of these games
are
these priceless?
Games. They're very expensive. I think
Project Justice. I couldn't find them all. I think I might have the rest of them on the collection.
Hold on a second. I didn't know you owned all these big. I gotta borrow them from you. Goodness gracious. But we won't have to anymore.
Which means I should be better at these games than I am. But I have played them all. I played them all originally. Why don't we go through this chronologically? The oldest one that we have here is Plasma Sword, which I actually have the Dreamcast version of the game. And this is actually a sequel to Star Gladiator, which was a PlayStation game. And that was an arcade game. These are all based on arcade code. But what's interesting is that all of these games either were from PlayStation or Naomi boards, and so they translated very well to home consoles, and they all had home console releases. But Plasma Sword Nightmare of Bilstein is the first one chronologically. What did you think about playing Plasma Sword again?
Oh my goodness, this was so much fun. I think it was one of the first ones we played in this collection, and I remember you using Omega, the big robot, and you were just shooting out lasers the whole time, keeping me out, and I remember laughing.
I totally found a cheat move until you could beat it.
But I loved it. I loved hearing you giggle and just find out a way to keep me out. But super fun, intricate game. Actually, you mentioned that Naomi is what most of these games run on, and this is actually the one game that doesn't run on the Naomi platform. This runs, I believe, on the Sony ZN1 platform. So very unique in that sense.
But it's PlayStation based, so it's not just Sony based. It's very much Star Gladiator was a PlayStation game. I think this came to the PlayStation as well. Plasma Sword did, and you can tell it's very archaic looking. It's very rudimentary. It's just like shapes stuck together to create these weird looking aliens. But it's fun still, right?
It's super fun. It's a 4-button fighter. There's a vertical slash, horizontal slash, a kick button, and a dodge button or move planes. And very, very simple to pick up. A lot of people might know this title as the title that has Hayato in it, who was added to the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 games. Right. So a lot of people went back to try Plasma Sword or Star Gladiator just to see who Hayato was. And really unique game. I remember when we played it, Vic, you said that this reminds you of Capcom Star Wars.
Totally.
Was so right. Like, there was totally like a Chewbacca-looking character, and it was just...
There's a Darth Vader-esque character. There's Jedi-esque, which is amazing, right? Like, I love that idea, and honestly, this is one that's ripe for reinvention, I feel. Like, this is Capcom IP. They have all of this horsepower now to play with. They should really dive back into this game and develop these systems. we're not allowed to talk about Power Stone, and we didn't even play it. We played Power Stone 2, which was a slightly tweaked iteration of the first Power Stone sort of gameplay. It really became much more of a party game with Power Stone 2, and it is a freaking party. It's an amazing game.
So colorful, so vibrant. You have dynamic stages, you got all the items. You know, you could still play one-on-one if you wanted to, but for the most part, this is, you know, a 4-player experience. And it's awesome because you can play co-op, and that's what you and I did. We were doing 2v2, going through the arcade mode, and it was just, this is Power Stone 2. I'm still surreal that I'm saying this, that we get to play this on our current machines, and it's been 19 years, Vic.
It plays beautifully, too. It's like a totally unique fighting experience. There's like overtures of the Smash Brothers kind of gameplay and picking up all kinds of weapons, and they disappear after a while, and the platforms are changing, the environments are changing. There are boss battles and things that you get into as well. It feels incredibly contemporary. Like, it feels great. And all they would have to do is remaster it, you know, with improved visuals to bring this exact style of gameplay out in the modern era. But I'll tell you what, playing this on a 4K TV, and it was so fun. I had a huge smile on my face playing this with you, and then I played a bunch solo, and I thought, oh my God, this is great. Capcom needs to bring this back.
Yes, and 19 years. It was on the PSP was the last time we saw the Power Stone collection. It's crazy to think that it's never really been officially re-released since this. Yeah. And this is one of the behemoths in this. There's another behemoth we'll talk about.
Yeah, there's two games.
There's two that really stand out in this collection, and Power Stone 2 is just one of those ones. Even if you're not like a big fighting game player and you just want to have a party game to play with your friends, I feel like there's just so much value and fun.
And you're celebrating the Dreamcast as well, right? I feel like the full power, the full operational power of the Dreamcast Battle Station has not been felt in a long time. They need to bring these games back, you know? Sega's done a little bit of drips and draps on the Xbox and things like that, where they've brought out a few of them, but there were so many cool ideas on the Dreamcast. Like, if Nintendo does something where they work with Sega to bring the Dreamcast to Switch 2, I mean, that would be an atom bomb announcement. That would be absolutely enormous. I feel like, you know, Xbox should bring that to Game Pass. They should totally work with Sega to do something like that. It'd be killer. But I think you're alluding to the other big title, the franchise in this collection, and that's Capcom versus SNK, which we haven't seen in a long, long time. The first one has that ratio dynamic. Why don't you explain what that is? You had to explain it to me as we were playing.
Yeah, it was actually really fun playing together and finding out the ratio strategy. So the first game had a ratio system, which is also in the second game. You can actually add that if you want. I think a lot of people didn't play with the ratio system, but pretty much every character is put into a tier. You have 4 points. And you can play 1 4-point character, you can play 4 1-point characters, or 2 2-point characters. And it's kind of a big part of the strategy in the game. Back then, there were not really update patches, so people found really good ratio 1 characters and really good combinations. Right. Which is probably why they removed that system later on.
It seems, like it'd be easy to exploit. Like, you find a couple of those cheap offensive moves as a ratio 1, and you give yourself 3 extra lives, basically.
Like, I think Blanca was like a very good ratio 1 character. So
of course.
It was really interesting playing together because,
like, how do you balance that? That seems impossible.
I think when we first played, Vic played Evil Ryu, which is a ratio 4 character. So he had 1 character versus 3 of mine. So it's really tough for him to do. But then the next match, I remember you played 4 1 ratio characters, and you totally kicked my butt. I was like, oh my God.
I mean, that seems like the wise strategy every time. You know, even if you suck with those 4 ratio 1s, you got a lot of kicks at the can.
But these games, you know, they scream style. You know, they're 6-button fighters, and they introduced the groove system, which the first game only had 2 groove systems, with the Capcom groove and the SNK groove, which kind of take the mechanics from their franchises. But, you know, the second game, which only came out a year later, and this is the other behemoth that we were talking about. Yeah. This is probably the game that a lot of the fighting game community is going to be getting.
It's a masterpiece.
For. It is a masterpiece. It is, you know, it screams style. It is one of the most incredible, iconic titles. The music in this game is something. It's got like 6 different grooves. It's got a massive roster, which has the secret characters unlocked. And
the hand-drawn art.
Oh,
it's just freaking gorgeous. It's just gorgeous, and the backgrounds as well, because they were playing with some 3D stuff, experimenting, and it is that great divide between like moving into full 3D on everything and still handling the 2D sprites and pixel art at the highest level. And then, of course, with the museum and all that other stuff, which I don't think we can really get into, but there's a lot of embellishment to kind of celebrate all of this stuff as well, right?
Yeah, I won't get into it too much, but yeah, there was like over 100 pages of some really gorgeous artwork in this, and I love that you brought that up because the sprite work was gorgeous and still has aged incredibly well. And it's just so cool to see a lot of these Street Fighter characters in that SNK art style. And you're right, it was a perfect blend of 3D and 2D. I feel like that's something that is still not being utilized perfectly today, but I love the fact that a lot of those backgrounds are so dynamic and movement. Even the projectiles were using 3D, but we still got that texture of the sprite art. Just an incredible fighting game.
I almost feel like the SNK and Capcom should experiment in that direction a little more today. You know, and
I agree.
In super high resolution, with 4K sprite work and what that would mean. I mean, God, it would mean a ton of really precise pixel work, but it could be.
This applies to all the games, and then this applies to all the games too. But like just having these games, Vic, with rollback netcode. I don't know if a lot of people realize what that means for the fighting game community to have this so easily accessible, that so many people are going to be introduced to these titles and really get into them to an advanced level because they're going to be able to easily play with other people. And this is going to be something to celebrate, especially for Capcom vs. SNK 2.
Yeah, so they're killing it with these collections. The other kind of cool one that I liked in this was Project Justice, which was part of the rival schools kind of. And so you're in high school and everybody's got superpowers and weird outfits and costumes. It's almost like an X-Men game. There's like a Wolverine type guy in it.
Yeah. That's right. That was your character. I remember that.
Yeah. And there's some pretty primitive 3D work in this. It's a 3D fighting game, but it's still fascinating. It's still interesting. There's still some really cool motion captured animation. You can still feel the labor there. I don't know if those 3D games, though, stack up to... Power Stone does, because of its weird cartoony charm. But I don't know if those 3D games stack up quite the same way that the sprite-based fighters do from that era.
Yeah, I feel like the charm with Rival Schools was really the world building. And the one unique thing about Rival Schools, which, Project Justice, known as Rival Schools 2 in some regions, is the fact that it actually had a story mode. It had this arcadey story mode that had episodes. And you can kind of play the different school gangs, and they all have different stories with, again, like dialogue pieces in between each match. So it was a really unique experience in that sense. So if you're looking for a bit more of like
weird in the middle between River City Ransom and Persona.
It's like, that's right. It does have a persona. I love that you brought that up because the charm, like, fans have really grown to love a lot of these characters from Rival Schools because they have so much charm, they have so much spunk, and I believe it was Akira was actually added to season 5 of Street Fighter 5.
Right.
So they've kind of brought a lot of these, characters from the franchise into the Street Fighter world. So they, I love that Capcom really celebrates.
Capcom could make if they wanted to go into a totally different direction, they could make the MCU of fighting games. With all these characters and all of this cross-threading and everything and this storytelling.
That's what Marvel vs. Capcom is, though. Is
totally,
it not? It's kind of like, it's so true, though. But they can do one with just Capcom alone. That's right.
I mean, they seriously could. And speaking of which, their key characters are in Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper. What does the Upper mean? What does that represent?
It was an arcade upgrade of the console versions of Street Fighter Alpha. So Street Fighter Alpha first released, and they had 6 missing characters that were exclusive to the console versions, which were DJ, T-Hawk, Fei Long, which I know you loved.
I love
Shinakuma, Ryu, and Guile. Those were the 6 console exclusive characters. And Upper
Ryu wasn't in.
No, sorry, not Ryu. They say Evil Ryu. Evil Ryu,
right.
Okay. Sorry. Good you clarified that. Essentially, what Upper did was add some balance adjustments, as these fighting games always do with Capcom Street Fighter games.
They couldn't download that stuff.
They couldn't download that
release
stuff.
A whole new thing.
And the interesting thing about Upper, actually, when it released in the arcades, I believe the arcade cabinet actually had a VMU slot if you wanted to take your home version from the Dreamcast and have your customized color and plug it into the arcade and play the Upper version. Alpha Upper was not really released in the last Street Fighter collection. Obviously, it has the 6 new characters, some balance changes, really, really fun. I'm curious to know why they didn't release Double Upper, which was another title that was released for the Alpha. I know, Vic, this sounds crazy, but that actually had some of the handheld characters. There's a few exclusive characters that actually still aren't in this version, like Maki, Ingrid, Eagle, I believe, is one of them.
Wow.
So I'm just curious to know if they're trying to save that, because Alpha 3,
Capcom Fighting Collection 3. What
exactly?
What's missing? Like, what haven't they brought out in any of these collections? Like, what would you like to see?
I really don't know. I can't think off the top of my head of what else.
They haven't done a 3D Marvel versus Capcom collection.
I mean, they haven't done the EX games. That is very true.
The EX games, yeah, and they haven't done the home console collection either.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And then something that to know about this collection too. This is mostly the arcade ports of the game.
Right.
So you brought this up too. How it would have been really cool to have some of these home versions, because, example, we're talking about Street Fighter Alpha 3. There's actually like a world tour mode in the home console version of Alpha 3. And I don't think it's present in this collection, unfortunately, because we're playing the arcade ports.
Well, we still have more to play, though, because
we do. That's true.
And we're going to get together and review this. It doesn't come out for a month, but it's pretty cool to have this early look at stuff and to sit down and play this. We're clearly a couple of huge fans of what Capcom is doing.
I think we cool, man. This is incredible. I've said at the beginning, like, the fact that all these games are collected, and as you said earlier, this really feels like a celebration of the 2000s and the Dreamcast in particular.
Thank you so much to Capcom for sending us preview code on this. Thank you, Behr, for joining me. And thank you all for watching. Thanks for supporting the Electric Playground by hitting that subscribe button and that little bell to be notified. We will see you soon. And until then, play forever.